The stars reflected in Commander Vecthar's black eyes as he studied the blue planet on his display screen. His clawed hand moved across the holographic interface, pulling up data that made his subordinates shift nervously behind him. The world before them was beautiful, swirling with white clouds and deep blue oceans. It was also, according to every metric their science could measure, a death trap. Class 10 Deathworld, Chief Scientist Melron said quietly, his voice trembling. Commander, I must protest this mission. The planet's classification is the highest danger rating in our entire database. Nothing should be able to live there. Yet scans show billions of the native species thriving across its surface. Vecthar turned to face his science officer. The commander stood nearly 7 feet tall, his purple-gray skin marked with the ritual scars of 100 victories. His military uniform displayed medals from 30 conquered worlds. He had never known defeat, and he had no intention of starting now. What I see, Melron, is a planet full of primitives, Vecthar said coldly. Show me their warships. Show me their orbital defense platforms. Show me anything that suggests they can threaten the Zeltharan Imperium. Melron's fingers danced across his datapad. Images appeared showing human cities, vehicles, and weapons. They have chemical propulsion rockets, kinetic firearms, and explosive devices. Their most advanced aircraft still use combustion engines. They have only just begun to establish permanent settlements on their own moon. Exactly, Vecthar said with satisfaction. They are children playing with fire. Meanwhile, we have energy shields, plasma weapons, and faster-than-light travel. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. But the planet itself, Melron began, is irrelevant, Vecthar interrupted. We are not soft colonists who need perfect conditions. We are soldiers of the Imperium. 10,000 of my finest shock troopers will land, establish control, and prepare the world for annexation. The humans will surrender within a week, or they will be eliminated. Around the command deck, younger officers murmured approval. They had heard stories of Commander Vecthar's victories. Many had volunteered specifically to serve under him. This mission would be another jewel in the crown of his already legendary career. Only Melron seemed unconvinced. Commander, please review the environmental data. The planet's gravity is 0.2 units higher than our homeworld standard. The atmospheric oxygen content is nearly 30% above what our species evolved to process. The electromagnetic activity in the atmosphere is extreme. The tectonic plates are highly unstable. There are millions of microscopic organisms that our preliminary scans cannot fully catalog. The native megafauna includes predators that— Enough! Vecthar snapped. I have read the reports. Yes, the environment is harsh. That is why we bring proper equipment and maintain discipline. Our environmental suits will handle the gravity and atmosphere. Our medical technology will protect us from microorganisms. Our weapons will handle any predators. You worry too much, old friend. Melron bowed his head in submission, but his expression remained troubled. As you command, sir. Vecthar turned back to the view screen. Below them, Earth continued its lazy rotation, unaware of the doom descending from the stars. The commander felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. This would be quick, clean, and glorious. Attention all forces, he spoke into the fleet-wide communication channel. This is Commander Vecthar. In one solar rotation, we begin our descent to the surface. We have been chosen for this honor because we are the best. The Imperium looks to us to bring this world into the fold. These humans have never faced a true military power. They will learn what it means to stand against the Zeltharan Empire. Thousands of voices responded with enthusiastic war cries. The sound echoed through the command ship and across the fleet of transport vessels. Vecthar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The hours passed quickly. Soldiers checked weapons, reviewed tactical data, and prepared drop pods. The plan was simple and had been used successfully on dozens of worlds. Multiple landing sites would be established simultaneously across the planet. Humans would be overwhelmed by the speed and coordination of the attack. Within days, their governments would have no choice but to negotiate surrender. Finally, the moment arrived. Vecthar stood in the drop bay with his personal guard unit. Around them, hundreds of troopers prepared for descent. Their armor gleamed under the artificial lights, and their plasma rifles hummed with barely contained energy. For the Imperium, Vecthar shouted. For the Imperium, his soldiers roared back. The drop pods launched. Vecthar felt the familiar lurch as his pod separated from the ship and began its fiery descent through the atmosphere. Through the small window, he watched the blue world grow larger and larger. The planet's beauty was undeniable. Vast green forests stretched across continents. Mountains rose like jagged teeth. Oceans sparkled in the sunlight. Vekthar felt a moment of appreciation. Once conquered, this world would make a fine addition to the Imperium. Perhaps he would even request a retirement estate here. His pod's targeting system showed landing coordinates in the planet's equatorial region, designated as Amazon rainforest in the human language. Scans showed it as a dense jungle, rich in resources and far from major human population centers, perfect for establishing a secure beachhead before moving on human cities. Other units were landing elsewhere. A battalion was descending on a large island the humans called Australia. Another force targeted the northern tundra regions. A full brigade was landing near a major human city to demonstrate Imperial power immediately. Smaller teams were scattered across the planet at strategic locations. The pod hit atmosphere. Heat washed over the exterior as friction turned the metal skin orange with heat. Vekthar gripped the crash harness and waited. He had done this hundreds of times before. The atmospheric entry passed. The pod's retro thrusters fired, slowing their descent. Through the window, Vekthar could see green canopy rushing up to meet them. Then, with a tremendous crash, the pod struck ground. The hatch blew open with explosive charges. Vekthar released his harness and stepped out onto alien soil for the first time, his rifle at the ready. Around him, more pods were landing, and his soldiers were deploying in disciplined formation. The jungle was immediately oppressive. Heat wrapped around Vekthar like a suffocating blanket. The air felt thick and heavy, making each breath require effort. His environmental suit's displays showed humidity at 98% and temperature at 34 degrees in the human measurement system. Uncomfortable but manageable. Establish perimeter, Vekthar commanded. Begin sensor sweeps. Locate the human settlements in this region. His troops moved with practiced efficiency, setting up equipment and scanning the surrounding area. But something was wrong. Vekthar could see it in the way his soldiers moved. They were slower than normal. The higher gravity was already taking its toll, and then he heard it. A high-pitched whining sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Moments later, the first screams began. Small flying insects, barely visible individually but numbering in the millions, swarmed over his troops. The environmental suits should have been impenetrable. They were designed to withstand vacuum and radiation, but the insects found seams, gaps, and the smallest openings. They bit and stung with a ferocity that shocked the battle-hardened warriors. "Medical teams," someone shouted. "Soldier down!" Multiple soldiers down. Vekthar watched in disbelief as his elite troops flailed at insects too small to properly target with their weapons. This was not how invasions were supposed to begin. His communicator crackled with reports from other landing sites. All of them were experiencing problems. Strange problems. Unexpected problems, and somewhere in the distance, hidden in the dense jungle, human eyes watched the aliens struggle. And those humans smiled. The Pentagon's Emergency Command Center buzzed with controlled chaos. General Sarah Mitchell stood before a massive display screen, showing dozens of red markers across the globe. Each marker represented an alien landing site. Each one represented an invasion force on Earth soil. "Status report," she barked at her intelligence officer. Colonel Davis pulled up data on his tablet. "Ma'am, we have confirmed hostile landings on 6 continents. Approximately 10,000 alien combatants based on our tracking of their entry vehicles. They appear to be establishing forward operating bases. No demands or communications have been received." "Weapons capabilities?" Mitchell asked. "Advanced, ma'am. Energy-based weapons, some kind of defensive shielding, superior armor. Our initial engagement in Australia resulted in heavy casualties on our side. Conventional small arms fire is largely ineffective against their shields." Mitchell felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it came with plasma rifles. "What about airstrikes? Artillery?" "Preparing now, General. But there's something strange happening." Davis gestured to another officer who brought up video feeds from various sites. "The aliens are struggling. Watch this footage from Brazil." The screen showed alien soldiers stumbling through dense jungle. They moved awkwardly, as if carrying heavy weights. Several collapsed completely. Some tore at their armor as if suffocating. Medical teams rushed between fallen troops while tiny insects swarmed everything. "And this is from Siberia," Davis continued. Different footage showed aliens in a snowy landscape. Their movements were sluggish, almost frozen. Equipment sparked and failed. One by one, soldiers fell into the snow and stopped moving. Mitchell leaned forward, studying the images carefully. They're not adapted to Earth conditions. No, ma'am, Davis confirmed. Our scientists have been analyzing their equipment and biology from the Australia engagement. Their homeworld appears to be lower gravity, lower oxygen, and much more moderate in climate. They're struggling with our environmental extremes. A slow smile spread across Mitchell's face. Earth is killing them for us. Not entirely, ma'am. They're still dangerous and they're adapting, but it's giving us opportunities. Mitchell turned to her strategy team. All right, people. Change of plans. We don't meet them head-on where their technology gives them the advantage. We draw them into the worst environments we can find. Swamps, jungles, deserts, mountains. Places where our people have lived and trained for generations. We make Earth itself our greatest weapon. Orders went out across the globe. Military forces received new directives. Instead of conventional warfare, they would wage a guerrilla campaign. Use the home field advantage. Make the aliens come to humanity's territory. In Louisiana, a group of National Guard soldiers and local hunters gathered in a small town outside the bayou. Captain James Rodriguez addressed them with a map spread across a table. The aliens have established a forward base 30 miles west in the swamp, he explained. Intelligence says it's about 200 hostiles. They've got better guns and better armor than us, but we've got something they don't. What's that, sir? A young private asked. We know this land. We grew up here. We've hunted here. We've survived hurricanes here. Every gator, every snake, every mosquito, every patch of quicksand. That's all on our side now. Rodriguez looked at the faces around him, seeing fear, but also determination. We're not going to assault their base. We're going to make them wish they'd never left orbit. The plan went into effect. Small teams of humans moved through the bayou like ghosts, setting traps and preparing ambush sites. They poisoned water sources with local bacteria that would devastate alien digestive systems. They marked safe paths for themselves and left the dangerous routes for the invaders. Around the world, similar operations unfolded. In the Amazon, Brazilian special forces led aliens toward areas thick with venomous spiders and aggressive ants. In Australia, Aboriginal guides showed military units how to use the land itself as a weapon, leading aliens past taipans and box jellyfish habitats. In the Norwegian mountains, a unit of winter warfare specialists executed a devastating ambush. They tracked an alien patrol to an unstable slope and triggered a massive avalanche with carefully placed explosives. 50 alien soldiers disappeared under tons of snow and ice. The few survivors, trapped and disoriented, were picked off by Norwegian snipers before they could radio for help. The aliens' technological advantages began to fail them. Energy shields designed for deflecting plasma bolts struggled with purely kinetic impacts from bullets and arrows. Advanced sensors couldn't distinguish between human fighters and wildlife in dense jungle. Communication systems faltered in Earth's electromagnetic chaos. Aboard his command ship, Commander Vecthar watched his invasion crumble. Reports flooded in from every landing site. Casualties mounted. Entire units went silent. The humans weren't fighting fair. They struck from ambush and melted away. They used weapons his shields weren't calibrated for. They somehow moved through terrain his troops found nearly impassable. Commander, we've lost contact with the Australian contingent, Melron reported grimly. Last transmission indicated they were being attacked by local wildlife. Something about extremely venomous creatures. And the Siberian force? Vecthar demanded. 40% casualties from environmental exposure alone. The cold is beyond what our equipment can handle. The survivors have withdrawn to their landing site and are requesting immediate evacuation. Vecthar slammed his fist against his command chair.
This is impossible.
They are primitives. How are we losing to primitives? Melron spoke carefully. Commander, I warned you. This is a Class 10 Deathworld. The humans aren't defeating us with technology. They're defeating us because they evolved here. They're adapted to conditions that are lethal to us. Every advantage we have in space means nothing on their ground. Then we adapt, Vecthar growled. I will not report failure to the High Council. I will not be the first commander in Zeltharan history to lose to a species that hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. What are you proposing? Melron asked, though fear was evident in his voice. I'm going to the surface. I will personally lead our forces to victory, gather our remaining troops and consolidate them at the largest base. We will fortify, resupply from orbit, and launch a decisive campaign against the human population centers. Overwhelming force, Melrun. That is how we will win. Commander, that violates every protocol. Your place is here, coordinating the— My place is where I am needed most, Vecthar interrupted. Prepare my shuttle. I land within the hour. The command ship's personnel watched their commander depart, many wondering if they would ever see him alive again. Melron returned to his station and pulled up the latest casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. In just 3 days, they had lost more than 4,000 soldiers. Not in glorious battle, but to insects, disease, temperature extremes, and guerrilla attacks. He opened a file marked Humanity Species Analysis and read through the data again. Humans had evolved over millions of years on this deadly world. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and the constant threat of predators. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom, but they had intelligence, adaptability, and an almost insane resilience. Melron had studied hundreds of species across the galaxy. Most evolved on relatively calm worlds. They developed technology to compensate for their physical weaknesses in controlled environments. But humans had developed technology while simultaneously remaining apex predators on a planet designed to kill them. There was a word in the human language he had learned from intercepted transmissions. Tough. It meant strong, resilient, hard to break. Humans described many things as tough. Their soldiers, their machines, their animals. But they also used the word as a simple statement of fact. Life is tough. For the first time since joining the invasion force, Melron truly understood what Class 10 Deathworld meant. It wasn't just about the planet's dangers. It was about what survived there, what thrived there, what called such a nightmare home and refused to leave. On Earth's surface, Commander Vecthar's shuttle descended toward the Louisiana Bayou, where his largest remaining force had established a fortified position. The commander was determined to turn the tide of this disastrous campaign. He had no idea that the real nightmare was only beginning. Commander Vecthar stepped out of his shuttle into the Louisiana heat and immediately regretted his decision. The humidity hit him like a physical force, making his breathing apparatus work overtime. Around him, his fortified base sprawled across what humans had called a dry island in the swamp. 2,000 soldiers, all that remained of his once mighty invasion force, moved between prefabricated structures and defensive positions. Report, Vecthar demanded of Base Commander Thelkar, who looked exhausted despite his species not requiring much sleep. Commander, welcome to hell, Thelkar said bluntly. We lose an average of 15 soldiers per day. Not to human attacks, though those happen too. We lose them to the environment. Last night, one of our perimeter guards was dragged into the water by a massive reptile. We found pieces of his armor this morning. The local insects carry diseases our medical scanners can't identify until symptoms appear. Our water filtration systems can't keep up with the bacterial contamination. And the heat is slowly cooking us inside our own armor. Vecthar surveyed the base. He could see the strain on every soldier's face. These were veterans of multiple campaigns, hardened warriors who had faced enemy fire without flinching. Now they jumped at shadows and constantly scanned the murky water surrounding them. What about supplies from orbit? Vecthar asked, irregular at best. The humans have primitive aircraft, but they've gotten lucky with a few strikes on our landing zones. We're rationing power cells and medical supplies. Food is the worst problem. Our standard rations aren't sufficient for the energy we're burning in this gravity and heat. We tried processing local organic matter, but it's incompatible with our biology. 3 soldiers died from attempting to eat processed human food. Vecthar felt cold dread settling into his stomach despite the oppressive heat. This wasn't a military campaign anymore. It was a survival situation. And the humans? Where are they? Thelkar pointed toward the surrounding swamp. Everywhere and nowhere. They attack in small groups, usually at night. They know the terrain perfectly. Our sensors pick up heat signatures, but we can't distinguish between humans and local wildlife until it's too late. They've been cutting off our patrol routes one by one, boxing us in. How many humans are we facing? Best estimate? Maybe 200 actual military personnel, plus an unknown number of armed civilians. They call themselves Cajuns and apparently view the swamp as their home. Commander, they're not trying to destroy us quickly. They're content to wait and let this place do it for them. That night, Vecthar experienced Earth's fury firsthand. A massive storm rolled across the swamp, bringing rain that fell so hard it overwhelmed the base's drainage systems. Lightning struck close enough to disrupt their power grid. Wind tore apart equipment that had survived void conditions, and in the chaos of the storm, the humans attacked. They came in small boats moving silently between the trees. They lobbed explosives that created more noise and confusion than actual damage. They fired weapons and disappeared before return fire could be organized. By the time the storm passed, 6 more aliens were dead, and the survivors were terrified of the dark water around them. Vecthar made his decision the next morning. We cannot stay here. We will march to higher ground 20 miles north. Intelligence shows a human settlement there. We will take it, establish a proper base with solid ground, and coordinate with orbital support for a renewed offensive. Thelkar looked horrified. Commander, a march through the swamp will be suicide. We should request evacuation and— There will be no evacuation, Vecthar roared. We are warriors of the Imperium. We do not flee from primitives. He lowered his voice, but the intensity remained. We march at dawn. Prepare the troops. The column set out the next morning. 2,000 soldiers in full combat gear, carrying weapons and equipment, trudging through water that ranged from ankle to chest deep. The heat was unbearable from the first hour. Soldiers began collapsing from heat exhaustion before they had traveled 2 miles. Private Calix marched near the rear of the column. He was young for a Zeltharan, barely into his 2nd century. This was his first campaign, and he had questioned it from the start. When Commander Vecthar had given his rousing speech about easy conquest, Calix had read the environmental reports and felt nothing but dread. Now, watching his fellow soldiers struggle and fall, Calix knew his fears had been justified. This wasn't war. This was massacre, and the humans were barely even fighting yet. Keep moving, Sergeant Baxtor shouted. Any soldier who falls behind will be left behind. But that was easier said than done. The mud sucked at their boots with every step. The water concealed roots and holes that tripped them, small creatures that the humans called leeches attached to any exposed skin, requiring constant vigilance to remove. The soldiers' energy shields protected against energy weapons, but did nothing against the physical challenges of the swamp. Around midday, the first soldier disappeared. One moment he was there, the next moment he was gone. The water bubbled where he had stood. Screams echoed from beneath the surface, then stopped. The column halted, weapons aimed at the water, but there was nothing to shoot at. Quicksand, a soldier whispered. It was quicksand. No, another said. Something grabbed him. I saw the water move. Fear spread through the ranks. They were being hunted, not by soldiers with guns, but by the planet itself. Every ripple in the water became a threat. Every shadow between the trees could hide death. The humans struck in the afternoon. Not a full assault, but harassing attacks from positions the aliens couldn't reach. Humans in elevated tree stands fired primitive rifles. Bullets, ineffective against shields in open combat, found gaps and weak points when fired from above. Explosive devices placed underwater detonated near marching soldiers. Nets tangled groups of troops, leaving them vulnerable. Vecthar ordered return fire, but their energy weapons struggled in the humid air. Beams dispersed and lost effectiveness at range. The advanced targeting systems couldn't lock onto enemies hidden in the dense foliage. It was like trying to fight ghosts. By evening, they had covered only 8 miles. 143 soldiers were dead or missing. The survivors were exhausted, dehydrated, and terrified. They made camp on a small rise barely above water level. Kylix sat with his back against a tree, his rifle across his lap. Around him, soldiers whispered fearfully. Some cried, others simply stared into the dark water with empty eyes. These were the same troops who had boasted about conquering Earth in days. Now they just wanted to survive until morning. Why did we come here? A soldier named Pelton asked quietly. We should have listened to the scientists. This planet is exactly what they said it was. A death trap. The commander believed our technology would be enough, Calix replied. He was wrong. What are the humans like? Pelton asked. Have you seen them up close? Calix shook his head. Only at a distance. They're smaller than us, physically weaker. But they move through this nightmare like they were born in it. They were born in it, an older soldier named Krevel added. He was a veteran of 20 campaigns. That's what we didn't understand. We came to their world and expected them to fight on our terms. But this is their home. Every creature that kills us is just part of their normal life. The heat that exhausts us is their summer. The water that drowns us is where their children swim. Then we cannot win, Pelton said softly. No, Kreval agreed. We cannot. The human attack came at 300 hours. Not a frontal assault, but something worse. The humans had positioned themselves around the camp and simply opened fire from all directions. In the darkness and confusion, the aliens couldn't organize an effective defense. Friendly fire incidents added to the casualties. Vekthar rallied his personal guard and tried to mount a counterattack, but there was nothing to counterattack. The humans fired a few shots and disappeared into the swamp. When alien troops pursued, they found themselves in even worse terrain, taking fire from new positions. The battle lasted 3 hours. When dawn finally came, Vekthar took stock of his remaining forces. Less than 800 soldiers still stood. The rest were dead, wounded beyond the ability to march, or simply gone. The dream of conquest had become a nightmare of survival. We continue north, Vekthar ordered, his voice hoarse. We will reach high ground. We will establish a defensible position. A single shot rang out. Vekthar looked down in surprise at the red stain spreading across his armor. The shot had come from nearly 400 meters away, fired by a human sniper with a primitive chemical rifle. The bullet had found the one weak point in his armor, right at the neck seal. The commander of the Zeltharan invasion force fell to his knees, then forward into the muddy water. Around him, his soldiers watched in horror as their leader's blood mixed with the swamp. The humans attacked in force then, sensing the moment of maximum chaos. They swept through the demoralized aliens like a flood. Close combat was brutal and short. Despite their superior strength, the aliens were exhausted and broken. The humans were fighting for their home. Calyx played dead, lying in the water among corpses as the battle raged around him. He heard the humans shouting to each other in their strange language. He heard the sounds of fighting gradually fade. The footsteps stopped next to Calyx. He kept absolutely still, barely breathing, his eyes closed. A human voice spoke, female, saying words he couldn't understand. Then he felt hands on him, turning him over. He couldn't maintain the pretense any longer and opened his eyes. A human woman looked down at him. She was older, perhaps in her 5th decade by human reckoning, with weathered brown skin and short gray hair. Her uniform marked her as military, and she carried one of their projectile weapons. But what struck Calyx most was her eyes. They were not filled with hatred or bloodlust. They looked tired and sad. She spoke again, this time in badly pronounced but understandable Zeltharan. You are young. First fight? Calyx could only nod, too shocked to speak. I thought so. She pulled out a medical kit, human-made, and began working on his wounds. You have 3 options. I shoot you now. I take you prisoner. Or you leave and never come back. Why would you let me live? Calyx managed to ask. The woman, her name badge read Chen, was quiet for a moment. Because I'm tired of killing. Because you look like somebody's kid. Because maybe if I let one of you go, you'll tell the others that we don't want this fight. She finished wrapping a bandage around his leg wound. But mostly because I want you to remember. Remember what happened here. Remember what happens when you invade someone's home. She pointed east. 10 miles that way is the coast. There's an abandoned harbor. Your people's ships still come down sometimes trying to evacuate survivors. If you move at night and hide during the day, you might make it. She pressed something into his hand. A container of water and some kind of food bar. Go. Tell your people to stay away from Earth. Sergeant Maria Chen stood and walked away, leaving Calyx alive among the dead. He lay there for several minutes, unable to process what had just happened. By all rights, he should be dead. The human had given him mercy he knew his own forces would never have shown to a captured enemy. When darkness fell, Calyx began moving. Every step was agony. His wounded leg screamed in protest and his body was exhausted beyond anything he had experienced before. But fear drove him forward. Fear of the swamp, fear of other humans, fear of being the last survivor of an invasion that should never have happened. The first night was a blur of pain and terror. Every sound made him freeze. Every shadow could be a predator. He fell into the water twice, certain he would drown, but somehow pulled himself out. When dawn came, he found a hollow tree and crawled inside to hide. Sleep came in fits, filled with nightmares of drowning, of being eaten, of watching his fellow soldiers die. When he woke, it was afternoon. He ate a small portion of the food Chen had given him and waited for darkness. The second night, he stumbled across a human dwelling. It was small, built on stilts above the water with lights glowing in the windows. He heard voices inside, laughter, the sounds of a family having dinner. He watched from the darkness, fascinated and confused. These humans lived here. They raised their children here. The swamp that had destroyed an army was their home. They didn't just survive it, they were comfortable in it. The realization struck him hard. Earth wasn't attacking the aliens. Earth just was, and humans had learned to be part of it. On the third night, he reached more solid ground. The swamp gave way to forest, then to fields. He avoided roads and settlements, moving parallel to a river that he hoped led to the coast. His food was gone, and he dared not try to eat anything from this planet. Hunger became another constant companion alongside pain and exhaustion. He came across a human structure that appeared abandoned. Taking a risk, he slipped inside and found it was some kind of public building, with machines the humans used for information. One was still functioning. Using what he had learned from intelligence reports, he managed to access what the humans called the Internet. For hours, Calix read about Earth and humanity. He learned their history, a story of survival against impossible odds repeated across millennia. Ice ages that would have killed his species had only strengthened humans. Diseases that should have destroyed them had instead made them immune. Wars that should have ended their civilization had instead driven them to create more effective cooperation. He found videos of human children playing in water that held predators. He saw humans swimming in oceans filled with creatures that could kill them instantly. He watched humans climbing mountains in conditions that had killed his soldiers. They did these things not as military training, but as recreation, for fun. One video showed a human speaking about their planet. The translation software rendered her words, "Earth is beautiful and terrible. It floods and burns and freezes us. It sends hurricanes and earthquakes and plagues. And we love it. We love it because it made us who we are. Every challenge it throws at us makes us stronger. We don't conquer nature, we dance with it." Calix understood then. The Zeltharan Empire conquered worlds by overwhelming them with superior technology. But technology was just tools. Earth had spent millions of years forging humans into the ultimate survival tool. Every soft aspect of their biology hit a core of pure adaptability. They had no armor plating, so they created armor. They had no natural weapons, so they created weapons. They had no resistance to disease, so they built immune systems that could adapt to new threats. Where Zeltharan evolution had created specialists for controlled environments, Earth's evolution had created the ultimate generalists. On the fifth night, Calix finally saw the ocean. The harbor Chen had described was there, a collection of broken piers and abandoned buildings. And in the sky, he could see the occasional flash of ships descending and ascending through the atmosphere. He found a position with good visibility and activated his emergency beacon. Then he waited, hoping the automated retrieval systems would detect him before any humans did. The hours crawled by. Dawn came, and he pressed himself into the ruins of a building, trying to remain unseen. In the daylight, he saw more evidence of the war's devastation on his own forces. Wrecked landing craft littered the shoreline. Salvage teams, human teams, were carefully examining the alien technology. They worked efficiently and carefully, already learning from what they had captured. That evening, as the sun set over the ocean, a Zeltharan dropship descended. It was smaller than the invasion craft, automated, designed for emergency extraction. Its sensors had detected his beacon. The craft landed 50 meters from his position, and the hatch opened. Calix ran for it, ignoring the pain in his leg. Any second, he expected human weapons to fire, to cut him down before he could escape. But nothing happened. He reached the ship and threw himself inside. The hatch sealed, and the craft lifted off immediately. Through the small viewport, Calix watched Earth fall away. The blue planet that had seemed so beautiful from orbit now filled him with a deep, primal terror. He had walked across a tiny fraction of its surface and barely survived. And there were humans living in every environment. From the frozen poles to the baking deserts to the crushing depths of the oceans. The dropship docked with an orbital station, one of the few that hadn't been destroyed or abandoned. Medical personnel were waiting, shocked to find a survivor. They asked him questions, but Calix could barely answer. He was too busy processing what he had learned, what he had experienced, what he needed to report. As they treated his wounds and gave him food, Calix asked about the invasion. The medic's expression told him everything before the words came. There are no organized forces left on the surface. Scattered survivors at best. The High Council has ordered a full withdrawal. We're retrieving what we can and leaving the system. How many made it back? Calyx asked quietly. Including you? 23 out of 10,000. Calyx closed his eyes. 10,000 soldiers, the pride of the Imperium, reduced to 23 survivors. And one of those survivors only lived because a human soldier had shown mercy that his own kind would never have offered. I need to speak with the Fleet Command, Calyx said. I need to make a report. You need to rest, the medic replied. No, they need to know. They need to understand what we faced. What we didn't understand. Calyx sat up despite his exhaustion. The humans didn't beat us. Earth did. And the humans are what Earth creates when it tries to kill something for thousands of generations and fails. The medic stared at him. That will be in your official report. That and more, Calyx said. Because if we ever think about coming back, we need to remember what happened here. We need to remember that we didn't lose to primitives. We lost to a species that calls Class 10 Deathworlds home. The Zeltharan homeworld of Zelthara Prime was everything Earth was not. The planet had been carefully terraformed over millennia, its weather controlled, its geology stabilized, its ecosystem managed down to the smallest detail. Standing on its perfectly maintained grounds, breathing its precisely calibrated atmosphere, Calyx felt a strange disconnect. This world that had once been his home now felt artificial, sterile, safe in a way that felt almost wrong. He stood before the High Council chambers, waiting to be called. Around him, other survivors of the Earth campaign gathered, 23 soldiers, all that remained of 10,000. Some bore visible wounds. Others, like Calyx, carried scars that ran deeper. The chamber doors opened and they were called inside. The High Council sat on an elevated platform, 12 of the Imperium's most powerful leaders representing military, science, governance, and commerce. They looked down at the survivors with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. High Counselor Vexmon spoke first, his voice dripping with disdain. 23 survivors from an elite force of 10,000. Commander Vecthar dead. Every objective failed. This is the most catastrophic military failure in Zeltharan history. He fixed his gaze on Calyx, apparently designated as the primary witness. Explain this disaster. Calyx stepped forward. His legs still ached from his journey across the swamp, but he stood straight. Honored Council, we failed because we fundamentally misunderstood what we were facing. We believed we were conquering a primitive species on a hostile world. The truth is that we attempted to invade a species that had already conquered the most hostile world in known space. Ridiculous, Counselor Thexel snapped. The humans have no void-capable warships, no energy weapons, no technological advantages whatsoever. Your failure was one of leadership and discipline, not enemy capability. With respect, Counselor, you are wrong, Calyx said, keeping his voice level. May I present my full report? Vexmon waved a hand dismissively. Proceed, but be brief. Calyx activated the datapad he carried and holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber. Earth is classified as a Class 10 death world, the highest danger rating in our system. This classification exists for a reason. The planet's gravity is 0.2 units higher than standard. We thought our equipment could compensate. It could not. Soldiers carrying full gear experienced fatigue 30% faster than expected. Injuries from falls and stumbles were common and severe. He changed the image to show atmospheric data. The oxygen content is nearly 30% higher than our homeworld. Prolonged exposure caused toxicity symptoms in our troops. The atmospheric pressure and humidity ruined equipment designed for controlled environments. Energy weapons lost effectiveness. Communication systems failed. Environmental suits degraded. These are minor obstacles, Counselor Melvara interrupted. Proper preparation should have... There was no proper preparation possible, Calyx cut in, a breach of protocol that caused murmurs among the Council. Earth's ecosystem contains millions of species of microorganisms, insects, and predators that our science had never encountered. Our medical technology could not protect us. Diseases killed soldiers within days. Insects found ways through armor that could withstand plasma fire. Predators treated our troops as food. He showed images captured from soldier suit recorders. The Council watched in silence as Zeltharan warriors were overwhelmed by swarms of insects, dragged underwater by massive reptiles, collapsed from heat exhaustion in temperatures humans considered normal. But the environment alone did not defeat us, Calyx continued. The humans did. They fought using tactics we never anticipated because we did not understand what they were. They did not meet us in open battle where our technology was superior. They drew us into the worst environments their planet offered and fought us there. They used the planet itself as a weapon. New images appeared, humans moving effortlessly through terrain that had exhausted alien troops. Humans surviving in conditions that had killed Zeltheron soldiers. Humans attacking from positions the aliens couldn't reach or defend against. We thought they were primitives, Calyx said quietly. We thought their lack of advanced technology made them weak. But humans don't need energy shields because they learned to survive without them. They don't need climate-controlled environments because they evolved to handle extremes. Every advantage we possessed meant nothing against opponents who had been forged by the deadliest planet in known space. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The humans have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Earth has been trying to kill humans for their entire evolutionary history. Ice ages, plagues, predators, natural disasters, each one should have ended their species. Each one only made them more resilient. They don't just survive on a Class 10 Deathworld. They thrive there. They love it. They call it home and refuse to leave even when it floods their cities or burns their forests. Counselor Vexmon leaned forward. Are you suggesting that a species that lives in mud and fears technology is superior to the Zeltheron Imperium? I'm suggesting that we attacked them on their ground by their rules and we lost completely, Calyx replied. If we couldn't conquer them on Earth where every advantage should have been ours, what happens when they develop void travel? When they come to our worlds, where the controlled environments we require are alien to them, they adapt, Counselor. Adaptation is their greatest strength. They will learn our technology, improve it and use it better than we do because that is what they do. They take every challenge and turn it into an advantage. The chamber fell silent. Several counselors looked uncomfortable. Others appeared angry. High Counselor Vexmon studied Calyx for a long moment. You speak as if you admire these primitives. I respect them, Calyx corrected. The same way I respect the swamp that nearly killed me, or the diseases that killed my squad mates, or the predators that hunted us. Humans are part of Earth. They are the ultimate product of the most brutal evolutionary pressure in the galaxy, and we grossly underestimated what that means. Chief Scientist Melron, who had been on the invasion fleet, spoke up from his position in the gallery. The soldier is correct, Honored Council. I reviewed all the data from the campaign. Human beings possess no single trait that makes them exceptional, but the combination of traits, adaptability, endurance, problem-solving, cooperation, aggression when threatened, these form a profile we've never encountered before. They are simultaneously predator and prey, warrior and builder, individual and collective. Earth created a species that can survive anywhere and adapt to anything. Then what do you propose? Counselor Thexel demanded. We cannot simply ignore a world in our expansion zone. I propose we quarantine the system, Melron said firmly. Mark it as restricted space. Post-warning, boys. Earth and its humans are to be avoided until we better understand them. If we try again without proper preparation, we will fail again, and each failure teaches them more about us while we learn little about them. Arguments broke out among the council. Some wanted immediate retaliation. Others wanted to pretend the disaster had never happened. Calyx watched the debate, feeling detached from it all. He had said what needed to be said. Whether they listened or not was beyond his control. Finally, High Counselor Vexmon called for order. The council will deliberate on these matters. For now, this is what will be recorded. The invasion force encountered unexpected stellar phenomenon that resulted in catastrophic casualties. Commander Vecthar died heroically attempting to save his troops. The sector containing the Sol system is hereby designated as restricted space pending further scientific study. Any vessel entering this zone does so at extreme risk. And the truth? Calyx asked quietly. The truth, Vexmon said coldly, is for the Council alone. The Imperium does not admit defeat to primitives. It undermines our authority across 1,000 worlds. You survivors will be reassigned to duties far from the core worlds. You will not speak of what happened on Earth. Is this understood? The survivors nodded, though Calyx felt a surge of anger. They were being silenced to protect the Council's pride. But he understood. The truth was too dangerous. If other species learned that the mighty Zeltheron military had been destroyed by pre-void primitives, the Imperium's reputation would crumble. The meeting ended, and the survivors were dismissed. Calyx was assigned to monitoring duty on the edge of Sol's quarantine zone, a position meant to keep him far from anyone important, watching a system the Empire wanted to forget. 3 years passed. Calyx spent them watching Earth from a distance, filing regular reports that were largely ignored. He observed as humans began venturing beyond their moon, establishing permanent settlements. He watched their first crude, faster-than-light experiments. He noted everything and sent it all to superiors who didn't want to hear it. Then one day his sensors detected something new. A human vessel, primitive but functional, had crossed beyond the edge of their solar system. It drifted for a moment as if getting its bearings, then changed course directly toward Calyx's monitoring station. His communicator activated. A message in human language translated by his computer. Zeltheran vessel, this is the Earth ship Destiny. We know you're there. We've known you've been watching for 3 years.